Hey y'all, welcome to 5 Minutes to Freedom for this week. I missed last week. It was Independence Day week and it was crazy busy and I had family reunion stuff and it was just, holiday weeks are so fun, but off schedule a little bit. So I'm going to share with you today something that kind of dropped in my heart last week, but I'm glad I didn't share it because I've had time for it to grow. And I think it's going to be better than what it would have been otherwise. So, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you saw the video, but me and my middle daughter, Sarah, talked about how Satan tries to convince you that things about you that actually the Lord put in there as strengths, Satan tries to convince you that they're really weaknesses so that you hide them, you downplay them, you don't use them. And the example I gave was Queen Esther and how her uncle Mordecai, had recommended that she go and stand before the king. And she said, but I'm a woman. And I could just hear, Mordecai saying, exactly, Esther, you're a woman. The very thing that you think is your weakness in this moment is actually your strength. And so, of course, you can look that up in the book of Esther. It's an amazing story. It's one of my favorites. But then also in my own life, Satan trying to convince me and trying to pull out of me compassion and love for people and humans and believing the best about others, and how, yes, that can be a weakness if it's not brought under the submission of Christ, where he teaches you how to mature your gift. That's kind of a tangent, but even the raw gifts on the inside of you need to be refined so that they're used for your good and for the good of others and not used against you. So in my case, not being ruled by emotion, but instead letting emotion fuel me. So anyway, tangent. But there is an area where a strength can be used as a weakness. And I think this is a strength that's unique to women. And I'm just going to go and step out there and say that. I've never been a guy, so I don't know. Guys, if you're listening to this, sound off and let me know kind of your thoughts on this. But I've never been in your shoes. But I know as a female and having female friends and discussions, that this is a strength that God has put in us. But a lot of times if we misplace this strength and use it on the wrong person and at the wrong season in our life, then it can actually bring great damage. So I'm going to give you some wisdom on how to use this weapon, this strength. It's a God ordained strength in your life. If you look at Ephesians 5:22, it's a passage that's talking about husbands and wives, but there's a principle here I want you to see. And Ephesians 5:21, we're going to look at 21, 22, 23. 21 talks about submit yourselves one to another. The Apostle Paul is writing to the church in Ephesus, and he's given them some framework of how to live a Christian life, how to just live life. And so he's talking about submitting one to another. So he's not putting any kind of a difference here between husbands and wives at this point. He's just saying, as a body of Christ, brothers and sisters in the Lord, prefer each other, male or female. Put other people first, submit ye one to another. But then he starts talking about the home. And says, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands. It does not say women submit to men. It does not say that. It says to your own husbands. And then it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And we know he's talking about husbands and wives here, and not just saying all women submit to all men, because he's also not saying here all men love all women like Christ loved the church. He's not saying that either. That'd be a little weird. So he's talking about the husband and wife relationship. So what I think is cool here, if the Lord gives you a commandment to do something, that means he's also graced you with the empowerment or ability to do it, or that would be unfair. So if he's given us the commandment to submit ourselves, not have the husband force us to submit, that's out of order. But for us in our own selves to choose to defer to him, And the way I like to look at this is, like, let's say he is the VP or the president of the company, but you're the VP. And so every good president, sits around that board table and discusses things and gains wisdom. But then in the end, the buck stops with him. The accountability stops with him. The responsibility, he has to stand before God and answer. So I'm grateful to not have that position, that I can still be an awesome VP and help steer our company, our family, and bring my thoughts to the table, bring my prayers to the table. But in the end, my husband has to make that call on things. And so that's a huge responsibility. But then it says, husbands, love your wives the way Christ loved the church. That's that sacrificial giving their life for you, putting your good above their own. We see this abused when we see someone trying to force someone else to submit to them, and it's all very much based on what's their good. So see, that's not the Christ kind of love. The Christ kind of love is the sacrificial love for the other person's good. So I just love how the Lord set this framework up so we would not be confused. So, but there's a principle here that shows that it's in us as women. This is what I'm trying to get to, and I'm already over time. I'll be honest in the listing and call it a 10 minutes to freedom or something. That it is in us to submit. And let me go with this. I'm going to use the word adapt right now to help this make a little bit more sense. We are wired that when we are being loved, we want to submit to that. It's in our hard wiring, and I'm grateful for it, that when you feel like he loves you and he adores you, that you just want to agree with everything he says and just go along with it. And it doesn't mean you never have an opinion, and the example I'll give is I was raised in a home that rooted for one specific football team. And I live in the South, and so college football is king around here. And so I was raised with one team, but then my husband was diehard for the opposite team, and a huge rivalry here. And so, of course, when I got married, I jumped ship because I just wanted to be his team. I wanted to wear his team jerseys. I wanted, we do that even like young girls in high school and stuff. And I'm going to share a story in a little bit, but it's in us to want to adapt. Okay, so that can be used as a weakness. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm sorry, I'm being long-winded today. Watch yourself. You will submit to what you crave love from. I'm going to say it again. Women, what are you submitting to? Who are you submitting to? You will submit to what you are craving love from. Be careful, it can be a snare of the enemy. This is for husbands and wives. This is not for your boyfriend. This is not for your fiance. This is not for your boss. This is not for a coworker. We crave love from so many places. We are made to crave. And so our response to that is submit, adapt, mesh into whatever we think they want us to be, and that can be such a dangerous place. Don't misplace your gift of adaptation and submission. Save that for the one that God has for you. Save it for in that realm. There's a young girl that I know and kind of know from a distance, and I watched her growing up and how she dressed a certain way. I'll just go country music is a big deal too around where I live, and so cowboy boots and hats and all the country look, John Deere stuff, and that was the guy she was dating, and they broke up and she was completely heartbroken, and then the next guy she met was all goth, and so she dyes her hair black, starts wearing black lipstick, wears chains and big jeans, and I saw her be like a chameleon that just morphed into the identity of whatever her guy was. And you could see the guys she was picking were not men who were loving her like Christ loved the church. She was submitting way before they were loving in a Christ sacrificial kind of way. And I just saw her, each time I would see her through the years, she would looked like she had lost more and more of her identity, so far as really getting off into a relationship that was for her harm, and getting into some lifestyles that were very, very dangerous. And so my heart breaks for her because she's a girl that didn't know her identity, and so she kept trying to find it in other things. So that what that tells me is that's a girl who didn't know she was loved already. So therefore, she didn't have to submit to things to try to get love from those things. Save your gift for somebody worthy of your gift. You can only do this if you first know your worth and value comes from Christ. So if you are in a single season of your life, and if you're not married, you're single. Just being engaged does not mean you're not married. you have to first get your worth and your value from him, like hooking up the hose pipe for him to pour into you. So then you're not craving love from unhealthy things. And then also, when you do find the one that the Lord has for you, and you get married, you're able to truly submit and not just mesh into and blend for the sake of trying to crave love from your spouse, even. That you are a whole person who chooses to respect them and defer to them. At times when you don't see eye to eye on things. That's the only time when submission is needed, is when you're not seeing eye to eye and you've talked about it, you've prayed about it, and he just really thinks there's another way to go. And so then you say, okay, well then I'm going to submit myself to you as unto the Lord. This is a favor to God. This is about God, not about you. And I'm going to do this and just pray, as you lead our family. So anyway, don't misplace your gift. If you ain't married, save the gift of submission and adaptation. Don't morph into what every guy wants you to be. You be you, and that changes what you attract. Because if you are giving way more of yourself than you're supposed to at that season of your life, submitting and just being whatever they want you to be, doing whatever they tell you to do, want you to do, even if it goes against your morals and your choices, true love, the kind of love that Christ has for the church, that sacrificial love that he commands men to have, or husbands to have for their wives, that he would be putting your needs first. And if you're with a guy that's not putting your needs first and your heart first and your well-being first, then he's not a man after God's own heart, and you don't want him. So anyway, be blessed, knowing that being his is being free. Have an awesome week.